Kelvin was a lonely, ugly loser with no riz and zero social skills when the god accidentally kills him with a truck gun. So, in order to make up for the blessing given to humanity, the reincarnation goddess named Melfina throws this burden into another world, but Kelvin loses his memory in exchange. However, Kelvin ends up being an S-rank summoner, and becomes the strongest summoner by rizzing up Melfina and the Demon King's daughter, ultimately creating a harem just like every other Isekai anime. But before doing all of that, Kelvin finds himself in a quiet forest and wonders where he is. Suddenly, a menu pops up just like solo leveling from Alibaba, and the female voice offers him to click the start button. As soon as he does so, the lady reveals that Kelvin has been reincarnated in another world, so he has no memories from his previous life. Kelvin curses his previous self because he can't remember anything, but the menu tells him to open up the stats tab, and Kelvin is relieved that he can get huge points by leveling up. His role is a summoner, so he goes to the nearby town to become an adventurer. While passing through the forest, the menu shows the stats of the lady, Melfina herself, and she is over 1,000 years old. She further explains that when Kelvin was being reincarnated, he told her that he loved her, but Kelvin doesn't remember anything about it, so he wants his memory back. However, Melfina can't do it because he exchanged those memories for skill points. He is about to puke at the cringe he said to the goddess and runs away. Kelvin orders Melfina to show herself, but he doesn't have enough skill points, so he can't see the old chick. They reach the Adventurers Guild, and Kelvin asks the receptionist about the registration form. She gives him the form, and just when he is about to write his role, Melfina tells him that he can't write summoner as his role because they are very rare and each nation has only one summoner at a time. If Kelvin writes his original role, he can get unwanted attention, so he writes his role as a green mage. After that, the girl hands over his F-rank card and explains the quests. There are some F-rank quests available, so Kelvin asks for one. He picks up the quest where he just has to put 3 blue slimes to sleep, and he buys a magic wooden rod to kill them, but maybe they are just like Kelvin but got reincarnated as a slime. He goes to the far-off place where he finds 3 blue slimes, and Melfina suggests using the appraisal eye that shows all the stats of any item and any monster. Kelvin has an S-rank appraisal eye so he can see monsters and items who are 100 levels above him, but he can't see Melfina's stats because she is beyond that. Kelvin thinks he will kill these slimes with a single blow, but our not-so-one-punch man gets ragged by a single slime. The slimes mock him to come at him, and it sends Kelvin's weakling body to the ground with just 3 hits. Kelvin anticipates the situation and tries a more faster attack on the slime, and this time he is able to take out 2 GP from it. The slime bounces off the ground a couple of times and gets knocked out. Kelvin uses his summoning magic to make a contract, but it drains half of his mana points. The contract is made successfully, and Melfina suggests giving the slime a name, so Kelvin names it Clotho. He summons Clotho and plans to take out 3 slimes using Clotho. Since slimes can eat weaker slimes, Clotho has no hesitation. The duo finds 2 slimes and attacks them. Kelvin kills one with wind magic, while Clotho takes the other one, but Kelvin notices that Clotho gets 100 points boost in stats after each kill. Melfina reveals that it is due to Kelvin's S-rank summoner ability, and he is the only S-rank summoner in this whole world. As they are chatting, Clotho takes out another slime, and Kelvin appreciates its help after summoning him back. He takes the slime cores to the guild and gets the money from his first quest. He then goes to find the hotel recommended by Ange from the guild, and while passing through an alley, he sees a slaver who has enslaved some elf girls. The elf girl looks at Kelvin with seductive looks, but Kelvin is a Sigma Chad, so he ignores her and goes his way. He finds the hotel that Ange recommended, and the owner introduces herself as Claire. Kelvin asks for a room to stay for the night. Kelvin wonders if the food will be good, and Claire laughs it off, saying that he's at the right time for dinner. After that, Kelvin goes to his room, but there is no bathroom to shower, so Melfina reveals that only the king's castle and houses have bathrooms, and the common folks use rivers or hot towels to keep themselves clean. So, now, Kelvin's objective is to collect so much money that he can afford a house with a bathroom in this world. Melfina suddenly senses something delicious, so Kelvin goes downstairs and Melfina can't wait for Kelvin to summon her as she loves human food. Kelvin sees the food and eats it like a maniac. For the next couple of days, Kelvin and Clotho take out some typical job quests and some higher ranked jobs to level up their skill points and levels. Just like every other Isekai anime, Kelvin gets huge buffs and bonuses along with 100 skill points thanks to his overpowered status. Using his bonus skill points, he picks up the concealment skill that is ranked at D, but he needs to get it to B rank so he can hide his stats. Not Kelvin gets huge buffs after leveling up, but Clotho's skills upgrade as well. After that, Kelvin goes to the guild and Ange congratulates him for achieving rank E within weeks. Everyone starts to speculate that he is a strong mage from another kingdom and Ange asks if he is from a distant palace, but Kelvin doesn't reveal his true identity. Ange apologizes for asking such a personal question and suggests Kelvin to upgrade his weapons as it is the same wooden rod. Kelvin agrees and asks for a D-rank job when suddenly, a man with yellow hair offers Kelvin if he would like to take on a Black Ghost Knight. The BTS-looking guy is named Cashel, who's a cocky brat with more disgusting plans than a sewer. He has just returned after cleaning a lizardman nest and introduces himself as a D-ranked adventurer. But the other heroes whisper about him saying that he is as strong as a B-rank adventurer, and he just loves picking up on adventurers lower than him. He offers Kelvin to join his party as they are going after a Black Ghost Knight, but Ange intercepts them because she knows that Kelvin can't handle a Black Ghost Knight even if it is just a D-ranked one. However, Kelvin rejects his offer, explaining that he is just an E-ranked adventurer and he can't possibly help them. Kelvin uses his appraisal eye and finds out that this bastard is actually on the same level as Clotho, but he has a mysterious title of murderer. But Kelvin knows that Cashel is stubborn like a typical 8-year-old American kid, so he gives him a challenge. He explains that whoever defeats the Black Ghost Knight will be the winner, but Cashel will go along with his party members, yet Kelvin is still confident. He knows that Cashel will come after him when he will be fighting the monster, or after that, so he will be prepared. Melfina wonders if it is a good idea to show off, but Kelvin knows that with great powers comes great responsibility, and he's willing to take down Cashel for good. Cashel goes to his party members, and one of them reveals that he used his C-ranked appraisal eye to look at Kelvin's stats, but they were concealed, meaning that he has C-ranked abilities. Another member named Raj arrives and he wants to crush Kelvin, but Cashel orders them not to do so as he wants the rookie to entertain them. At night, the party goes to the Wicked Spirit's castle and finds out that all the undead monsters are already dead. Just as they were wondering what happened here when suddenly Kelvin appeared with a verdant staff. The party members think that he is a low-life green mage with his staff, and he can't kill the Black Ghost Knight, so he waits for them, but in reality, Kelvin knows that the party is after him, and he doesn't want them to interrupt his fight with the knight. So, he reveals that he knew it all along, and the members get scared a bit. They think that Kelvin is a bounty hunter, but Kelvin didn't even know about the bounty on their heads. He mocks Raj, who looks like a white Dwayne Johnson, and the bald guy runs towards Kelvin. But he uses his staff to summon a concealed mud vine magic that even Gimmel the appraisal wasn't able to detect. He senses that the rookie is too strong for them, so he runs for his life. Everything is going exactly according to Kelvin's plan, and he summons Clotho, who is now a slime Gluttonia, in front of Gimmel. He runs back to his party, but Clotho launches him in the air and knocks him out cold. The White Johnson manages to escape from the mud, but he is caught by Clotho. Now, only Kelvin and Cashel are left face to face, and the cocky bastard launches on our protagonist, but gets knocked out in a single blow. It turns out that Cashel and his members were gaining experience points by hunting low-level adventurers instead of the monsters, so Kelvin plans to take these evil guys back to the guild. Now, it is time for the main showdown, and Kelvin is pretty confident in his skills and abilities. He opens up the gate and uses his appraisal eye to see the stats of the Black Ghost Knight, and his name is Gerard, who's at level 53. So, Kelvin changes his mind, and instead of defeating the knight, he now wants to take him to his party. And then they sit and chit-chat for a while, because this is the first time Gerard is talking with someone in years. He explains that he once served as a knight to a king, but now both the king and the kingdom are gone, so he wants to see Kelvin's strength and check whether he's worthy to take him into his party or not. Hence, the two agree to a duel, and the fight begins with a lame 2D animation. Kelvin attacks first and Clotho follows his attack, but Gerard is able to dodge all of them. Kelvin uses his own magic, but Gerard throws his mighty blade swing that Kelvin barely dodges. He then uses air pressure magic to hold Gerard, and that's when he sees flashbacks of his kingdom. He used to serve the king of Alcarl, and one day, a messenger arrived who threatened the king to serve the Lysia Empire, or they would have to pay a price. The king refused to do so, and a fatal disease took the life of everyone in the kingdom except Gerard, and after a long journey, his daughter died as well. Gerard's spirit of vengeance breaks out, and he frees himself from the spell. He launches on Kelvin like a hungry hound, and Kelvin barely manages to block his attacks when Clotho arrives, and the two land a devastating blow to put the knight to sleep. Kelvin then goes to the Heroes Guild with a piece of the Black Ghost Knight's armor, and Ange, along with the other guild adventurers, congratulates Kelvin for defeating the knight that everyone is scared of. The Casual party is also in jail, and everything seems alright, but Gerard thinks that Ange is very beautiful and Kelvin should add her to his harem, but Melfina intervenes claiming that she's Kelvin's wife. Kelvin tells them to shut up as he is tired and goes to his room when he sees an old man standing in front of him and he's looking outside. It turns out that the old lad is none other than the guildmaster Leo. Leo uses his appraisal eye, which is ranked, and sees all the stats of Kelvin. He asks him if he has arrived from another world, and Kelvin hesitates as his secret is now revealed. The guildmaster takes Kelvin to have a tea party and wonders if he is a summoner. Kelvin has nowhere to hide and tries to think of an excuse, but Gerard tells him to accept his fate and make some more friends who can keep his secret. So, Kelvin obliges to his advice and backfires by asking the guildmaster if he had such appraisal skills. Why didn't he catch Cashel and his lagoons earlier? Leo laughs and explains that the brat belongs to a noble nation of Trison, so he needed some solid proofs, and just when he had those, Kelvin showed up. But Kelvin tells him to talk about business, but Leo is an old lag who's just looking to make some friends, so he reveals that he has already met some people from another world a couple of years ago. Kelvin is shocked, and Melfina says that she will explain everything later. But Leo explains that the heroes were summoned by the priestess of Demaris, who has speculated that the arrival of the Demon King is upon the world, and that's why the monsters are getting stronger. Kelvin sees right through Leo and asks if he wants him to protect the kingdom, and Leo replies positively, because there are not many heroes in the kingdom who can handle B-rank monsters or above. In return, Leo would provide additional ranking points to Kelvin and more money per job. Also, he will keep his secret and give him freedom, which is the one thing he wants in this world, so Kelvin agrees to his terms. After that, he goes back to his hotel room where Claire congratulates him on reaching rank B, and she's too sweet to be true, so Gerard asks if she is a member of the harem as well. But Kelvin doesn't like old chicks except Melfina, so he just eats his lunch and asks Melfina about the reincarnated heroes. She explains that the priestess of Demaris performed the summoning ritual, so Melfina summoned some cute boys and girls from another world, and they are doing pretty well. Kelvin is fascinated to hear about other heroes and the Demon King, so he wonders if he will fight someone as strong as Gerard. Suddenly, Kelvin remembers something and summons Clotho, who gives him his prize money. Everyone thinks that Kelvin is going on shopping, but in reality, he is going on a slave shopping, and he wants to buy a female slave. Gerard is also a man of culture and supports Kelvin to complete his desires, but that is not the case here. Kelvin wants to enhance the party, so he needs a slave to train, and slaves can't use their skill points unless their masters tell them to. So, Kelvin will need someone who never had a master before, as they are going to fight much stronger opponents than Gerard. Kelvin remembers the slave he once saw while passing through the alley. That's why he goes to the same alley and finds a man running for his life as his head is on fire. The slave seller saves the guy and curses him for offering him a cursed slave. It turns out that the hot slave is under a curse and burns anyone who touches her. Kelvin uses his appraisal eye and sees that she doesn't have a master, so he wonders what he would need to break the cursed spell, and that's when Melfina tells that he's gonna need a rank a blessed spell. Kelvin goes back and the slave looks a bit heartbroken, but Kelvin returns after a bit and buys the slave by giving the seller a hefty amount. The seller opens the door and the elf girl feels very happy after seeing the sky for the first time in weeks. Kelvin takes her along with him, and she hesitantly appreciates Kelvin for purchasing. She introduces herself as Ethel, who's a rare half-elf. Kelvin reveals that he's an adventurer and asks Ethel how long she has been enslaved. Ethel was sold as soon as she was born, so she doesn't even know who her parents are and how long she has been enslaved. Kelvin tries to touch her, but she steps back because she doesn't want to hurt her master. But Kelvin gives her trust, and as soon as he touches her, the curse breaks and Kelvin pats her on the head. Ethel breaks down and thanks her master for giving her a blessing. After that, the duo goes back to the hotel and Claire is suspicious about a half-naked girl and tries to touch her, but Ethel is still scared. However, when she touches Claire, nothing happens, so he feels relieved and Claire takes her to get a shower. Kelvin is about to die from hunger when they come back, and Kelvin is lost for words as he sees Ethel in a maid dress because everyone knows what will happen next. He praises her looks and the two eat to their full before going to the room. There, Kelvin introduces Gerard, Clotho, and Melfina to Ethel and reveals his true identity as a summoner. He gives her double growth skills and double skill points and guides her to choose some skills as they are going to be fighting alongside each other. Soon, Kelvin sleeps, but he can't as Ethel is sleeping alongside him, and there is no other room, so Kelvin has to control his urges as a Sigma Chad, or he will let down Andrew Tate. A month passes by and Ethel has become an important part of the party. She has adopted archery skills and sewing skills so she can shoot blazing arrows with magical spells. The sewing skills allow her to make her suit compatible with a bloodlust fight, and Gerard is also shocked to see Ethel so perfectly in a maid dress. After fighting the Sagatries, Ange congratulates Kelvin, as he is soon going to be promoted to a rank and Ethel will also become a B rank soon. Suddenly, Ange switches from professional mode to personal mode and asks Ethel if she wants to go with her to a newly opened sweet shop. Ethel asks Kelvin if he will go with them, and she bushes a bit. Kelvin can't turn down a request by such a hot elf cause he is a man of culture and he wants to please Andrew Tate, so Kelvin agrees. The next morning, Melfina leaves Kelvin's slave network to do some goddess business, and Kelvin waits for Ange and Ethel in the park. Ange arrives in a country boy outfit and Kelvin appreciates her, but Ethel is nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, Ethel arrives in a blue dress with a straw hat and Kelvin just loses and can't utter a single word. Ange pinches him and he appreciates Ethel's looks. The trio then goes to the sweet shop and Ethel offers him some sweets from her own plate. Seeing this, Ange asks if she does it at the hotel as well, and some people notice the trio. They start whispering about them and Kelvin gets pissed, so he tells the girls to go home, and everyone wonders what the three of them will do after going home, as this is a love triangle. Out of nowhere, someone kicks their table and we see a fat chubby brat along with two of his knights. The chubby brat is Tebra, the third prince of Trison, and they mock the trio for being a low life. The prince offers Kelvin to hand over the girls and he will forgive him for his public romance, and the two knights step up. Kelvin isn't going to let her girls go with a fat dude, so he just slams the knights in the wall. The prince pisses his pants and Kelvin puts him under an air pressure spell. He inquires why he's in Parth, but the prince is spitting anything, so he makes him bow down. Tebra reveals that he's here to meet Leo, the guildmaster, who told him that there is a strong adventurer in the city. Kelvin wonders why he had rank D knights with him, as he's a prince, so the fat brat reveals that he wants to make a strong hero serve under his name so he can have some glory. Kelvin tells him that he's the hero he is looking for, but he is not going to serve a cocky prince. We see the great cathedral of the kingdom of Daramis where Melfina's assistant, Colette, asks her to reveal herself. Melfina arrives and asks how the heroes from the other world are doing. Colette shows her the stats and Melfina is pretty impressed. She gives Collider a new oracle and orders her to send the heroes to the west as she senses a strong evil presence there. At night, we see Ethel and Kelvin who are not asleep, and Kelvin apologizes to her for not getting another bed from Claire as there are none. But Ethel gets up and asks Kelvin if she is not attractive enough as a woman. Kelvin blushes and Ethel says the 3 words that nobody has ever said to you. But she is still a slave, so in order to keep their healthy relationship, Kelvin says that she is the most beautiful waifu he has ever seen, and Ethel hugs him in joy, but now it's time for Kelvin to buy a house with separate rooms. The next day, the party is speculating the stats of the heroes and Melfina is back as well, but the heroes are not strong enough as Kelvin had thought. Suddenly, Claire arrives and tells Kelvin that the guild is calling him. So, he goes to the guild and meets Leo, who tells him that a demon has appeared in rank D dungeon in a secret room. But the adventurers made it back because the demon was sealed. The demons are one of the strongest classes in the world, and even the weakest are B ranked. In this case, the level of the demon is unknown, so it could be a S ranked demon. Kelvin hesitates, so Leo asks if he met the Prince Tabra. This is actually a blackmail statement, so Kelvin would take on the job. So, to get out of the situation, Kelvin agrees to take on the quest. The party goes to the dungeon where they meet Erd, the test examiner, and he tells them that the area is sealed. However, they can only watch Kelvin go in as they are not strong enough. Kelvin and the party go inside, and they finally reach the demon room. Before opening, Kelvin senses 2 life forms inside, and the one weakened is the demon. Meanwhile, the other one is an unknown form, and it is much stronger. So, they plan to deal with the strong one first, as the demon is still sealed, and as soon as they enter, they see a half-naked demon who looks like Devil Jin's sister from Tekken. From one side, an archdemon arises who introduces himself as Victor, and archdemons are more powerful than simple demons. He reveals that the demon enslaved is the daughter of the last demon king, and only a human can break her seal. Turns out that they stepped right into a trap, and Victor launches on them to absorb their powers. However, Gerard steps in and holds the demon back, but he is not strong enough. Victor reveals that he can absorb the characteristics of anyone he eats, so he wants to eat a human and break the seal of the demon lord's daughter. He is actually the aide of the demon, and if he eats her, he will become the new demon king, but Kelvin is just smiling with a sinister smile on his face. Gerard remembers that face, and it's the same smile that he saw when they fought. Kelvin is actually a battle junkie, so he gets an adrenaline rush whenever he faces a stronger foe. Victor uses a magic spell and spawns an army of the undead to even the odds, but now Kelvin's party is now outnumbered. All the monsters are B rank, but Kelvin and the others manage to take them down with ease. Victor is just standing watching his undead army get dead again. He appreciates Kelvin for his high-level skills and wants to remove his smirk. Victor uses a smoke bomb and goes under the ground, but Kelvin is able to detect him and Gerard blocks his attack. However, Gerard can't keep up with Victor, so he throws him away and uses his underground hands to grab Kelvin, but Clotho jumps in and tries to absorb Victor's arm. Suddenly, Kelvin uses his sanctuary attack and binds one of his arms, but Kelvin is absorbed so much in the battle that he doesn't recognize that one of Victor's hands is behind him. Victor thinks that this is the final winning moment when Ethel appears out of her stealth magic and shoots a blazing arrow at Victor, but the demon manages to stop it. However, his arm turns into a stone and Gerard uses his mighty sword to chop off his other arm. Victor is impressed and Kelvin wonders if he's going to give up, but that's when Victor starts transforming into his ultimate form. Kelvin orders the party to launch everything at him as they can't give him time to transform, but they are a bit late. Victor launches at them, but Gerard is able to hold it back for some time, but he is easily taken down. Ethel throws her magic arrows at him, and that's when Clotho appears to launch all of the cursed weapons that he was holding when Kelvin was learning his blacksmith skill. Kelvin, Ethel, and Clotho shoot their final finisher, and Victor accepts his fate after having a final look at the demon daughter. The structure collapses on the daughter, but Victor jumps in just in time to save her. It turns out that Victor wasn't planning to eat her. He just wanted Kelvin and his friends to fight him with full force. He reveals that Princess Syrah was a hidden daughter of the Demon King, and he was put as her caretaker, but when the heroes arrived and took down the Demon King, he ordered to seal her daughter from everyone until a peaceful era came. The demon Syrah is hearing all of this, but the seal is still up so she can't wake up. Victor requests Kelvin to let her join his part and show her the world. These were his last words, and Kelvin goes on to break the cursed seal. Syrah wakes up and starts crying after hearing Victor's words. The party then goes outside and shows the proof that the demon is dead, and thanks to Syrah's camouflaging hairband, she can hide her horns and wings. Suddenly, Gerard starts shaking and Kelvin resummons him as he has evolved to an abyssal knight that only appears in S-rank dungeons. Kelvin then goes to Syrah and she asks if he really wants to take her to his party as she is a demon and people will freak out after finding it out, but Kelvin assures that he will use S-rank concealment skill so nobody can see her stats. After that, everyone goes to the town and Syrah is amazed to see everything as this is the first time she has seen the real world because she was at Hustlers University earlier. When Kelvin reaches the inn, he is surprised to see everyone celebrating his promotion to rank A. Everyone drinks hard and parties even harder until the night when everyone is in deep sleep. Kelvin gets up and Syrah is nowhere to be seen, so he finds her outside sitting alone and remembering her past. She is happy for her new life and vows to live it better just like her father and Victor had expected. Since Kelvin's blacksmith skill and Ethel's sewing skill have reached S rank, they decide to make weapons and artifacts for their party. First is the erendite that Kelvin made for Syrah using Victor's armor. And Gerard gets a new sword, but Kelvin is tired from all the work and Ethel asks if he wants something to eat, and that's when Kelvin remembers his favorite food, Japanese rice. But they are not available in this kingdom, so they venture to the kingdom of Toraj to find some, and also due to Kelvin's promise to Victor as he wanted to Syrah the world. Syrah is fascinated by everything, but Gerard notices that Melfina is missing again. It turns out that Kelvin still isn't able to summon Melfina, so she goes to find one of her avatars, and that way Kelvin might be able to summon her. Suddenly, a white beautiful bandit stops that cart and a bunch of lunatics appear as well. They are the members of a bandit group called the Black Wind, and it is run by a hero who turned rogue. Kelvin uses his skills and finds that all of them are below level 30, so he doesn't want to get his hands dirty and sends Syrah to deal with the situation. Syrah takes on everyone alone and punches them in the air with no hassle at all. They tie all of the bandits, and it turns out that Syrah is already at level 75, so Gerard wants to challenge her to a duel. The leader of the group laughs and tells them that they should worry about themselves as their master is level 70. The sinister personality of Kelvin kicks in, and he asks about the details. After that, they go to Toraj's hero guild and find the guildmaster Mist, who was in the same party as Leo a couple of years ago. She tells the party that the A-rank adventurer Kristoff is behind all of the Black Wind group, and they are enslaving and trading people. Syrah is pissed as Mist isn't doing anything despite knowing everything about the bastard and the party. This isn't an easy task as Kristoff is a hero and he's admired by a lot of people, so this might cause a war between the two kingdoms. Suddenly, Kelvin asks Syrah to see if someone powerful is around and Syrah senses the hero party there. Kelvin asks Mist to send the party to the hideout, but Kelvin wants to fight the heroes, so this is all part of his plan. Kelvin and his partner go to the abandoned building where a cheap joker from Target is harassing and abducting a little girl. Suddenly, he hears a thud, and Kelvin's party is already there. The joker hesitates to do anything, and Gerard knocks him out. Kristoff is seen arguing with one of his comrades because he immediately called a meeting after the fall by Karna's group. The door knocks and the party jumps in to take down the bastards. Kristoff gets ready to fight Kelvin, but Kelvin doesn't care as they are just pebbles on the road. He is actually waiting for the heroes' party to arrive so he can fight them. Meanwhile, the heroes of the nation arrive at the palace, and they can't find anything when one of them senses a lot of people in a single room. So, they follow the energy and find the room where the people are. Suddenly, Clotho appears in front of them, and just when the heroes are about to engage, the little girl Luca, who was saved earlier, jumps in to protect our slime. Toya, the leader, introduces the party and the slaves are relieved. It turns out that Clotho was put there by Kelvin to protect the slaves, and Luca's mother asks Toya and his party to help the adventurers who came earlier, but this is all part of the plan. The hero party rushes to the last gate, and they find Kristoff and his members lying around, but they think that they are the O-rank adventurers who came earlier. They are shocked to see the wounds on the heroes, and hear a sudden hush from the other room. They rush in to fight the Black Wind Bandits, while Kelvin just sits there like a final boss for the heroes. Kelvin mocks the heroes by saying that there is no place for weak people, and they will also end up in the same situation if they are weak. The leader, Toya, pulls out his sword and his members introduce themselves as Setsuna, Nana, and Miyabi. Toya acts all tough because he has more girls alongside him than all of you will ever have and comes up with all the justice BS. But Kelvin shuts him up by telling him that Toya is too weak. Kelvin is actually trying to provoke them, so he offers them a deal. He says that he will fight all the heroes himself, and whoever wins will grant one wish of the winner. Toya is so dumb that he still doesn't get it, so Setsuna tells him that Kelvin is holding something back and they must fight him together. Nobody can sense how much magical power does Toya has, so they agree to fight him together. They go to the main hall, and it turns out that Kelvin wants the heroes to take the claim that they freed the slaves from Kristoff, so the people of Trison will turn on Kristoff. Ciro wants to join in the fun, but Kelvin wants them to just sit for now and eat some sandwiches. However, Ethel is still concerned about Kelvin's decision, as all the heroes have some unique skills. But Kelvin is still confident because he made the Skill Eater Gauntlet from Victor's armor, and it can copy anyone's skill. Toya gives some Captain America type speech, and the heroes use Fairy Grace skills to kick some summoners' butt. Toya knows that Kelvin is a caster, so he tries to close in the distance, but Kelvin is cheeky, so instead of fighting at a long distance, he rushes in closer to them and launches on Nana, but she pulls out a dragon with fire breath that Kelvin barely manages to dodge. After that, he appears behind Miyabi and takes her parallel thinking skills. Kelvin has one skill eater on each hand, so he can only copy 2 skills at a time. The girls get busy in helping out Miyabi, and Toya takes on Kelvin alone, but everyone knows Kelvin is a battle junkie, so he starts fighting Toya with a single fist. Everyone is shocked to see that Kelvin is just his bare hands against Toya's S-rank swordsmanship. Turns out that Kelvin had copied Sira's martial arts technique to fight the heroes. Setsuna jumps in to save Toya, and Kelvin casts a wall in front of them, but Setsuna is able to cut it with a single hit. Suddenly, Kelvin jumps in for a devastating blow, but Toya is able to save him. Toya gets injured, but he still thinks he is Captain America, so Setsuna smacks the shiz out of him like Will Smith. She acts as the main character to give a short speech, and Toya realizes that he has been doing solo leveling alone, but it won't work on Kelvin, so they fight as a team this time. Nana holds him with some ice magic, and Miyabi uses an air pressure spell. Kelvin gets scared for a second as he can't move, so he self-destructs himself. However, when the dust settles, Kelvin is standing without a single scratch. He is impressed by the heroes, but guides them like a teacher as he knows their every ability. This time, the hero party attacks with all their might, and Kelvin is really in trouble for now. Miyabi summons an ogre, so Kelvin summons 2 golems to hold them off for a while. Kelvin uses the parallel thinking spell, which he copied earlier, and makes a new spell to free himself and destroy all the crystals at once. He then gut punches Setsuna, takes down Miyabi and throws Nana out of mid-air. Now, only Toya is left standing, and he is really pissed to see his friends get manhandled. He goes into berserker mode, but Kelvin calls him a disappointment. Toya asks why Kelvin doesn't use this power to help the world, and Kelvin again smacks the shiz out of him with a single punch because he doesn't like low-level people giving him advice. Toya goes to the knockout zone and wakes up after some hours. His friends are beside him, and he sees the little girl Luca sitting in Kelvin's lap with Clotho. Toya still thinks that Kelvin is the bad guy, but after looking at the slime, he remembers the little girl who told them that the slime is from the adventurers. Kevin introduces himself as a rank adventurer, and Toya questions why he wanted them to get all the things in the wrong way, but he remembers his fight was just to make them better heroes. Toya gets on his knees and thanks Kelvin for showing them their weak sides. Kelvin appreciates it, but asks him to complete his wish. Toya agrees to do anything for Kelvin and his party, so our summoner asks them to get stripped in front of everyone, and the heroes just scream in disgust. Kelvin heads back to the town and gives the slaves to the guild master Mist, and the Black Wind members are captured as well. Kristoff and his party will be held accountable, and Kelvin goes to have some fun with the stripped heroes. They are in a cave fighting a giant octopus monster, while Kelvin and the others are watching them. Kelvin wants to make them stronger so they can defeat some S-rank dungeon boss, but they get easily defeated by the octopus giant. Syrah asks Kelvin to fight them again so they can become stronger, and Kelvin thinks it is a great idea, but the heroes finally manage to defeat the giant monster. After that, they go to eat some sandwiches, and Toya explains how they got teleported to this world when they were in their classroom, and a goddess appeared in front of them. Kelvin asks Toya what he will do if a S-rank dungeon boss appears in front of him, and Toya replies in disappointment that he will run away as they are not strong enough yet, so they will run and come back when they can defeat a S-rank boss. Meanwhile, Syrah pulls out a S-rank dragon boss from the lake, and Kelvin is happy with his answer. They take out the dragon boss with ease, and the hero party sets sail to their mission. Toya appreciates Kelvin's support to make them stronger, and Kelvin gives them some pendants that are more than just lucky charms. The heroes set sail, and Toya wonders if they can become like Kelvin and his party someday. Gerard arrives, and Kelvin asks if the Lysia Empire who destroyed Alcarl is just around the western corner of the sea. He wonders if they can defeat them now, and Gerard thinks that they can since they have leveled up a lot and can defeat S-rank dungeons bosses with ease. Something that he thought was impossible is now possible, so he praises his master for remembering his revenge. But first, they have to get a bit stronger before they can take out a whole empire. Syrah bumps into Kelvin with her giant cannons and tells him that a messenger has arrived from the Guildmaster Mist. Kelvin is really happy as he can finally enjoy some rice. So, they go to the castle in Toraj that looks exactly Japanese, because there had been some rumors that the first ruler of Toraj was a Japanese from another world. The party goes inside, and they see the Japanese tatami. So, they take their shoes off, and the queen introduces herself as Tsubaki Fujiwara. Meanwhile, the guards simp on Syrah for looking like a noble princess. Tsubaki appreciates Kelvin's help in taking out the Black Wind and the demons from the cave, which would have been impossible otherwise. She offers Kelvin to pick up anything from the kingdom, and Kelvin just wants some rice instead of money or items. The queen laughs it off and says that he can have as much rice as he wants, and he eats like a maniac. They stay in Toraj for a couple of days, and Efil has mastered the art of rice, but Tsubaki finds it as an excuse to eat with Kelvin. She tries to hit on our boy, but he won't let Andrew Tate down, so he declines Tsubaki's offer to stay with her. Kelvin asks for their leave as their quest is still incomplete, so Tsubaki offers them a teleportation gate to Parth. They step in and go straight to their inn. Claire asks if the queen was hitting on Kelvin because Ange has told everyone about it, but Kelvin shakes it off, saying that he is going outside to buy something. Claire teases and asks if he's going to buy another pretty slave, but this time, Kelvin buys a house for the party. They go to their new gigantic house where the little girl Luca and her mom Ellie will be working as maids. Kelvin bought this house because it had a bath, and he hadn't washed himself in ages. After taking a bath at night, Kelvin goes into his room and lays on his bed. Suddenly, he senses that Melfina is back and asks if he can summon her now. She replies positively, and so Kelvin summons her, and we see the Holly Molly goddess of reincarnation with white angel wings. Kelvin is happy to see her as she looks exactly her type, and this might be love at first sight again. The next day, the party has breakfast together and Melfina has a hard time finding them because they have left the inn. But nobody knows who is this new hot mommy, so Melfina gets up and introduces herself as the goddess they talked with in the servant network. Melfina apologizes to Syrah for her father's incident, but Syrah is totally cool with it, and so Melf announces herself as the wife of Kelvin. Everyone thinks it is cringe and Gerard seems pretty concerned, but Kelvin tries his best to tell them that it is a lie. In the afternoon, Melfina tells everyone to call her Mel, as she is a well-known goddess, but we can call her MILF. Since Kelvin is the first one to summon her, she gives him a reward and draws a flower pattern on him. It will give Kelvin 2 power-ups, and the first one is resistance. It means that Kelvin can take complete damage from a fatal blow once a month with any itch, and the second one is the power to summon heroes. After that, Mel and Cyr go to the basement to fight each other for their right to sleep next to Kelvin, but it ends up in a draw. However, the fight is pretty amazing as Gerard and Luca appreciate them, and the 2 fighters go to take a hot bath that every man of culture wants to see. But Ethel tells them that Kelvin is feeling a bit out of the zone, and Mel suggests that it might be due to the power of hero summoning she told about. So, Mel goes on to explain things to Kelvin, and he asks why this world needs heroes, but before answering any question, Mel needs to explain something about the Demon King, and Kelvin wonders if it is about Syrah's dad. It turns out that the appearance of the Demon Kings is a recurring cycle, and nobody knows why it happens, but whenever a Demon King is summoned, he or she gets a complete personality change, meaning that they become pure evil and can nullify any damage. It is like being in a god mode forever, and that's why the heroes from the other world are brought here, because they have more mana and strength to take on a Demon King, meaning that Kelvin can hurt a Demon King if he fights one. Kelvin asks if it is ethical to summon someone from their life, even if they don't want to, so Mel explains that there are 2 ways to bring heroes. The first is summoning them from their world when they are still alive, and it takes low mana points. This comes in handy when one has to summon a group of heroes at once, like the Durami's heroes. The other type of summoning is the reincarnation summoning, meaning that the soul of a dead person is reincarnated to the new world with a new body and face, but it drains a lot of mana points. However, the hero will be a lot stronger. Kelvin is a bit astonished and wonders if he was an ugly loser in his previous life. Mel asks him to think about his decision and wait for the right moment, but Kelvin is still fast as F-boy. So he summons his party in the basement and tells them he is going to summon a single hero as they have to fight much stronger foes. He resummons his members and eats a mana refiling position. The summoning begins and Kelvin uses all of his mana points except one. It takes a long time for the hero to summon as he or she doesn't know what to choose as a skill. Finally, the person chooses the skills and demands not to change their appearance, and so the hero summons. But it turns out to be a little girl who introduces herself as Rio. Kelvin tells her that he's an A-rank adventurer who summoned her here, and Rio is amazed by this otherworld concept. However, she starts crying out of nowhere and gets blacked out. Kelvin tries to wake her up, but he gets knocked out as well. At night, Rio wakes up and remembers how her previous life was full of medicine, and when she dies, the overused Ice Sky menu appears in front of her. She goes outside and starts running in the yard, as this is the first time she has seen the night sky. Kelvin arrives and explains that he was summoned here as well, but he doesn't have his part memories unlike her. He further adds that he didn't know anything when he arrived here, and so he fought and made new friends along the way to get to this level. However, if Rio wants to leave, she can. But Rio explains that she had been a cripple all her life, spending all of her existence in hospitals, and she wasn't able to enjoy anything until she died. She always questioned her existence, but now she can finally run and work with a healthy body, so she wants to repay Kelvin for giving her such a blessing. She wants to join Kelvin's party and Kel agrees. But one thing concerning is the black hair of Rio, because black hair is rare in this world, so they plan to tell everyone that Rio is Kelvin's little sister from a distant land, and Rio happily agrees. She starts calling Kelvin her brother, but there's another problem. Rio resonates with Leo, the guildmaster, and Kelvin doesn't like it much, so he wants to change her name. Rio suggests the name Rion, which sounds more like a girl and similar to her previous name, so Kelvin adopts the new name Rion and welcomes her to this new world of fantasy and magic. At night, Kelvin wakes up and finds Sarah sleeping in front of him, and suddenly, Mel grabs him from behind while dreaming about sushi. And to make matters even more worse, Rion also sneaks into the bed while all of them are asleep. Turns out that Kelvin is living the playboy life he always dreamt of, and the next day, Kelvin takes everyone, including the maids, to the dark purple forest. Ellie asks why he brought them alongside him, and Kelvin explains that the two of them and Rion will have to level up a bit to take care of themselves, so he uses the skill-sharing skill, and they will get skill points whenever someone from the servant network kills a monster. Syrah, Gerard, and Clotho kill some monsters, and Syrah challenges them to see who will kill the most in a certain time. Suddenly, the folks level up, but Ethel senses a shadow wolf approaching them. Kelvin asks Rion if she loves dogs, but she had never touched a dog in her previous life. So, Kelvin gets up, and as the wolf approaches them, he uses the air pressure magic to drain its mana and makes a contract with the wolf. He resummons it, and everyone likes it immediately, but Ethel senses that Erd and his party are on the way here. They reach the entrance, and Erd is a bit shocked to see Kelvin and his pretty girls. Erd is actually here to kill some monsters so his party can be promoted to B rank, and everyone feels jealous after seeing such beautiful women. Mel introduces herself as a new party member, and Kelvin says that Rion is his little sister. The party members can't take it and run away in jealousy, while Erd runs after them. Syrah, Gerard, and Clotho arrive and ask why Erd was here, so Rion explains that they are here to kill some monsters, but it turns out that these battle junkies have already cleared all the monsters in the forest. Kelvin goes back to the inn and apologizes to Erd for not helping him out, but the Chad's totally cool with it. However, he insists Kelvin take the S-rank exam as he and his party are really strong now. They go back to the mansion, and Rion names the wolf as Alex. Kelvin puts a collar around it, and it looks more like a dog, but nobody can understand Alex except Rion because of her ability to talk with animals. Rion is living her dream life here, but at night, a bunch of ninjas surround the mansion. Kelvin wakes up the members except Mel and Ethel to take on the ninjas, and uses his far-seeing ability to sense that they are way weaker than him. So, Kelvin suggests Alex and Rion take them out, as this will be a perfect first battle. He gives Rion a new sword, and the girl jumps into action. They easily take down the ninja who had infiltrated the mansion, and Syrah senses that Rion can become a S-rank swordsman. Kelvin asks Clotho to clear the mess and goes after the boss. The boss signals the ninjas to come back, but Kelvin appears behind him. Kelvin has the same sinister smile from his battle fuels, and we all know what will happen next. Meanwhile, at the Trison's castle, an urgent meeting is held between the generals of different cities. Zell the Emperor starts the meeting, and his son asks if this is about Kristoff because capturing the slave entourage was General Tristan's idea, but Tristan had no idea that they would be so weak and pathetic. Dan the old man thinks that this is a lame excuse to cover up his mistakes, but Shatora shuts him up. Zell says that due to Tristan's negligence, the other kingdoms are forming an alliance, and it might start a new war, and Tristan agrees to start a new war because, for the past couple of years, the other kingdoms had been living in peace while the Trison kingdom was strengthening their military. Dan is strictly against the decision, and Princess Shatora says that this is not the right moment to do so. However, Asgard the prince wants to check out his new pet, so agrees to the war. Now, the scores are tied at 2-2, so Zell calls in General Clive. A knight takes the message to the Magic Knight, and the HQ is lined with pretty female knights all the way. The knight opens the door and almost pukes at the disgusting smell. A lot of ladies are already knocked out because Clive doesn't like to shower and has a stinky magical scent. The knight named Jin is actually Dan's son, and he asks the general to come to the meeting as the emperor expects him. Clive agrees, but he gets butt naked to ask Jin if he's pretty, and Jin thinks that he is gay. The next day, the party rushes to the Western Gone, and Ethel says that she is getting a spider sense as it feels nostalgic. Syrah is concerned about why there's an elf village, as they used to be in the western side. Mel explains that some of the elves migrated from the western to the eastern side and are now under Gone's protection. Kelvin recalls Leo telling him that the bandits he captured are from Tryson, and lately, there has been a lot of action on Tryson's borders with other countries. He also adds that Tryson is getting involved with Gone a lot, and there have been some minor incidents, but they haven't tried anything on Parth or Toraj since they are the important cities of the country. Leo assumes that there might be some political conflict going on in Tryson, and this might start a war among the nations. With that being said, Leo offers Kelvin a direct job from the King Leonhard of Gone, who will take him a S-rank promotion exam. Syrah explains that the condition of becoming an S-rank adventurer is a ruler's approval, but Kelvin knows that it takes 2 rulers' approval. Leo was able to manage the approval from Queen Tsubaki, and only Leonhard was left to approve his skills. Ethel wonders what is the king like, and Mel explains that he is also a battle-hardened warrior who left as an adventurer and came back as an S-rank hero. Gerard asks if Kelvin is thinking to do something fishy with his sinister brain, but Kelvin assures him that he won't kick the king's butt. Syrah asks why they will be protecting an elf village when the king is already so strong. Kelvin reveals that Tryson is involved here and they don't need to hold back this time. Suddenly, an arrow comes out of nowhere and the cart stops. It turns out to be elf archers, and they stop the cart to check who's the traveler. Kelvin shows them the parchment and introduces himself as the adventurer. The elves lower their guard after hearing the king's name, and the village elder, Nelruz, arrives and tells them that the king has told him everything about them, but he suddenly hits a pause when he sees Ethel can call her Lumil, asking how is she still alive. Nelruz takes them to the village and apologizes for the misconception, but Kelvin wants to know why Nelruz took Ethel for Lumil, because she was found in a slave market and had a dragon king's curse on it. Lumil might be a clue to find out where Ethel came from, and Nelruz clarifies that they used to live in the western continent when one day, a dragon king appears and demanded the elf who had humiliated him. Nobody knew who did it, and the dragon king laid havoc on the village, killing half of the elves when Lumil stood up against him. She offered herself as a sacrifice to let her village be alone, and the Dragon King took Lumil as his bribe. However, Lumil's body was found in a forest afterward, so the elves fled to the east, thinking that the Dragon King might come back. It might mean that Ethel is actually Lumil's daughter, but it is not possible because a dragon's blood is too much for an elf, and only a human and an elf can give birth to a half-elf. Ethel shakes it off, saying that she doesn't care what happened in her past, because now she is living the best life with her master and friends. After that, Nelruz explains that some monsters and soldiers have been kidnapping elves at night, and despite having a magic barrier around the village, the monsters still manage to find the village. Kelvin knows that someone is using nullify magic to get through the barriers. Nelruz adds that the monster comes 2 or 3 times a day, and instead of attacking the village, they just kidnap the elves. Kelvin knows that someone is controlling them, as the monster doesn't have high-level organization, so he asks Nelruz if they can renovate the village. At night, the mixed demon beast army marches towards the village. They make fun of the elves, calling them cowards. The bald commander says to look out for ambushers, but the soldiers take it as a joke, and it turns out to be a grave mistake. One of the soldiers asks where they get the collars from, as they can tame any monster even as rank 1, so the bald leader tells them that Prince Tristan bought them from a merchant. Just as they are chatting, an invisible arrow comes out of nowhere, and the soldier falls off from the beast. The soldiers start falling like toothpicks, but nobody can see or hear any attack coming from any side. Then, we see Kelvin and Ethel standing on a giant tower and striking the Trison's army. Kelvin made a special bow for Ethel that shoots noiseless arrows and they disappear on his. Kelvin made a giant wall around the village and used Mel's spell to make it invisible. He used Syrah's black magic to make poisonous water around the wall, and the first defender in line is Gerard. This time, only the girls will take out the enemies, so Alex, Syrah, Mel, and Rion go to the beast army. One of the soldiers runs back to the camp and reports to him that they are ambushed by a bunch of beautiful women. They are an adventuring party that has completely taken out Unit 4, and Unit 5 is about to fall as well, and they are defeating their B-rank monsters like they are nothing. Suddenly, Alex, Rion, and Mel arrive there, and they thank the stupid bastard for letting them follow him. The leader of the army wakes up the Gigant Lord, and it turns out to be a giantess-rank golem. Mel asks if Rion and Alex can take it out alone, as it is an S-rank monster. Rion remembers her training and obliges to take the Gigant down, pissing off the monster. He attacks them, but Rion dodges and lands an attack on the giant's head, but Rion's sword breaks. She barely manages to dodge its attack, but gets injured in the process. She hits a plan and asks Clotho and Alex to cover her, and Clotho gives them a bunch of swords. Together, they jump on the giant and land a mighty thunder on it like Zeus. The giant falls down and the leader orders him to transform, and it turns into a burning Hades. But it is still no match for a reincarnated girl from another world, and she again uses her thunder spell to take out the beast permanently. The leader pisses his pants to see a girl wipe out an entire army and a Gigant Lord. Meanwhile, Ethel and Kelvin are watching her from the tower when suddenly, someone attacks them, and it turns out to be Prince Clive. Kelvin's sinister personality kicks in as he sees someone strong standing in front of him. Clive gets excited to see Ethel, as she is the most beautiful elf he has ever seen, and tries his charm magic to claim her, but Kelvin breaks it off. Clive wonders who is this nobody that is challenging the general of Truson's magic knights. Kelvin warns the bastard not to do anything with his women because he is a follower of Andrew Tate. Kelvin uses his appraisal eye and sees that Clive is at level 91, and he has his skills centered around his charming eyes skills. He knows that Clive is also reincarnated, and Clive speculates that Kelvin is reincarnated too, as he can see through his rank concealment skill. Kelvin orders Ethel to go down the watchtower, as he will take out the bastard alone. Clive says Ethel's name and Kelvin gets pissed. He throws a wind shot at Clive and his servants and turns the watchtower into 4 large spears. He throws them at Clive, but he manages to block them. Clive thinks that he is the main character and nobody can kill him. Kelvin uses his magic spell and obsidian edges to kill Clive, but he makes a helix barrier that nobody in this world can penetrate. Kelvin is a bit scared as he has never fought someone this strong, and his battle junkie mode activates. Suddenly, the Clive's knights attack Kelvin, and he senses that they are under his charm as well. Clive says that he is outnumbered when Ethel throws a penetrating attack that Clive barely dodges. Kelvin summons his adamantine golems who face the female knights, and now only Kelvin and Clive are left alone. They fly in the air like F-16 jets and throw magic attacks on each other. While fighting, Clive offers Kelvin to be his servant, but Kelvin doesn't give a crap about being a servant, so Clive unleashes his powerful that rains magic attacks like there's no tomorrow. His own party gets involved in the attack and Kelvin warns him about it, but Clive doesn't give a flying F as he is just a bloodlust-hungry simp. Clive says that this world has complete freedom and he can do anything with his power because nobody can stop him as is too strong for anyone. He had been having fun since he reincarnated and asked Kelvin if he had the same fun. Kelvin thinks for a while and tells the ugly bastard that if someone can't protect or care about their friends, then they are just ugly sore losers. Clive doesn't like it, and the two clash with each other. When the dust settles, Clive's face gets a scar and Kelvin's staff breaks. Clive loses it as he thought he was Mr. Universe, so he wants Kelvin to pay for it. Clive unleashes his most powerful S-rank magic move called the Tempest Barrier, which is more like a tornado. Kelvin gets a bad feeling about it, and Clotho pulls out a brand new S-rank blackstaff. Kelvin doesn't want to destroy Ethel's village, but he has no other option, and the party wonders what their master's face would look like with the sinister smile. The staff is still incomplete, but Kelvin still uses its legendary move and cuts the Tempest barrier into two. Clive wakes up and finds out that both of his legs are missing. Kelvin flies in to finish the job, but suddenly, Clive gets teleported and we see General Tristan there along with his golem. Tristan explains that he was the one who came up with the plan to attack the elf village, but Kelvin senses that he's a summoner as well and his golem has some unusual skill. Before they can fight, the sore losers teleport themselves and Kelvin apologizes to the party for letting the culprits run away. Back at the village, Ethel tells about the victory and Nurlas orders the villagers to throw a giant party. Gerard steps in and asks if Kelvin called her his woman. She starts blushing and Kelvin arrives, so she melts from blushing. Meanwhile, Mel, Syrah, and Rion are rushing to Gerard to see who can reach him first, but Rion makes a new spell and dashes in like flash to win the race. Syrah and Mel praise their little sister and Rion tells how she defeated a gigant lord. On the other hand, Clive is imprisoned by Tristan as a punishment and he has already healed his legs, but he punishes him with more than 1,300 cursed weapons for being a useless piece of the story. At night, everyone parties at the elf village while Kelvin sits on a hill when Elfin arrives. Suddenly, Kelvin hears an inside as it is from his other world, but he can't get it. Elfin shows the hair catcher that Lumil had, so she asks Kelvin to put it on her and wants to serve him forever. Kelvin agrees to her demands and the other members arrive as well. Suddenly, a little elf girl arrives and hugs Kelvin for saving the village, but turns out that the little brat is King Leonhart, who has the magic ability to transform the shape, and he watched over Kelvin all the time during his test. He reveals that Kelvin has passed the S-rank promotion test and everyone congratulates him, but he still has to do a sparring match with some S-rank adventurers so they can give him a proper ceremony and gifts. Hearing this, the battle junkie mode kicks and Kelvin just wonders how strong the opponents will be and he can't wait to meet the adventurers. Kelvin just wants to get stronger and stronger so he can take out anyone in this world. But before leaving us alone, why don't you hit the subscribe and like and watch this video where the bullied boy gets God's power and becomes the strongest in the school.